happy drunks and you can get aggressive drunks. And the happy drunks are happy and then they fall asleep. And the aggressive drunks are the ones who society is currently concerned about more than the happy drunks. I think it's way too easy to demonise or to pick out whatever drug it might happen to be, whether it's heroin, G or whatever, or alcohol. But I think we really need to look at the underlying causes.
I think the other important thing is that really it's only in the last sort of 5 or 10 years that we're starting to dig out what's actually going on in the brain and where it's going on. And when you start to look at what's just been mentioned now, psychedelics, the pathogens like MDMA and so on, and ethanol, alcohol, they are working in vastly different ways in the brain. But what is happening is that they are changing the way that the brain works on a short-term level. Alcohol in particular. There's a part of the brain at the front called the prefrontal cortex, and this is an area of the new area of the brain. This is the most recently developed area. And in this area, figuratively speaking, exists a bit of the brain where I watch me doing me. It's the self-observational part of the brain. The bit of the brain that would be part of my own spiritual growth. It enables me to see me relative to everyone else. Some drug systems shut that down immediately. It's the first thing that gets shut down in the brain. And that part of the brain is shut down by ethanol almost immediately. So one of the cultures of ethanol is being around people that aren't able to see themselves. And that is the social culture that's around ethanol. Take the opposite way round and look at the way that MDMA works, for instance, and there you've got almost the opposite thing going on. Consciousness expands massively into how I am relative to everyone else. It's, as Julie Holland said, it's the one drug that's available out there for psychotherapy that's unfortunately not usable yet, but it's the one drug that removes fear. It's the one drug that slows the amygdala down, the fear responses in the brain, the one that makes us lock up immediately and start defending. It's the one drug that slows that down. And because of the modern war on drugs, we've thrown away the best tool that psychotherapy has got to deal with couples that are fighting and are going to kill one another because they've been having an argument about the, whatever it is. Things that are just completely irrational, and we are choosing to demonize the drugs that can work best in those situations, and actually laud the alcohol culture, which says, I like an experience in my brain where I get out of it. What do I get out of? Well, I actually get out of being able to watch myself. I cannot see myself anymore. The bit of my brain that allows me to see me relative to everything else has been anaesthetized, because alcohol is a depressant. It's not a stimulant, it's a depressant. I'm not knocking alcohol, I'm just saying what we're not doing is we're not looking at what it's doing in the brain, we're not looking at what it's doing in a society, and we're not seeing how it's creating a social consciousness of its own in which it's not able to observe itself.
I think that's very right. You have to look at why the culture's not looking for those answers and wanting to know why it's doing. It's almost like when they say a culture gets the leaders it deserves. I think a culture gets the drugs it deserves, or what it wants as well, really. And just to round this all up, because we're almost out of time, is that what type of culture do we want? I mean, what type of global culture, what type of planetary culture do we want for the future, for our children and for us as we transform and have to adapt to rapidly changing circumstances? So you can pursue these pathways of the brain with alcohol or even marijuana or whatever, but what changes are they going to make in you as a person, and what's going to bring us together as a community, and what's going to bring us together as a global community? And I would hazard a guess that the planet itself has been, to take a psychedelic angle, excreting exopheromones. It's been excreting these substances to encourage the creatures to take them, to guide us back to some type of balance. In the 60s, acid opened the minds. In the 80s, ecstasy opened the hearts. And in the noughts, we're seeing a plant ethnogen-based movement quite focused on things like ayahuasca, which is really taking off across the globe, and other plants as well. But it's really about the plants, and I think the planet is really trying to tune us back in. So I'd just like to leave that with an open question of, what type of culture do we want, and how do we get there? And I'd like to thank you all for coming. And I might just say, what was the website, or how do people contact EGA if they want to know more about these issues?
Thanks, Rakip. The website is entheo.net, And our conference this year is the outdoor conference. It's going to be held up at the in the Strathbogies, just about an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2 hours north of Melbourne. And that'll be in the first week of November, around 6th to 9th, I think. So that's a 3-day open air conference, www.nthio.net. Thank you.
And to do another URL, thejourneybook.com, easy to remember. And it would be really nice if actually everyone who is interested in these issues, this is actually a primer. It's designed for the person who knows nothing about these substances. It's got the whole history, the whole overview in an incredibly beautiful package. And it would be really nice to think that the psychedelic community is supporting independent media and trying to get these ideas across. We are, from one mind to another, we're all trying to connect, and we would appreciate your support with EGA and with the Journey Book and with future endeavours like this. And so thank you all for coming, and have a good night. One last thing, there is a after party on at the Loop Bar, which is